Alrighty, John. Well, thank you very much for taking time out of your Monday evening to chat with me about your experience in the ApplyPass Platinum coaching program.
Yeah, no problem. Let's do it.
Sweet. All right. Yeah, I guess, John, if you want to share a little bit about, your background and kind of what you were up to before we started working together, I think that would be great as a starting point.
Yeah, so I have, at least I feel like it's an unorthodox sort of background for at least for where I was, what I was trying to do with this job search. So, got my bachelor's in electrical engineering, and then after working in that field for a few years, got a master's in computer science. And so my original role, what I was quite good at and I enjoyed, was field applications, which the software version of that is solutions engineering. And I was doing
Okay.
that in the out in the field, um, meeting, going on customer sites, consulting with them, looking at their projects, trying to match our tools with their project, working out kinks, getting things, working with the salespeople, getting deals across the finish line, and then implementing solutions and making them work. So I really enjoyed that job and I was good at it. But um, I that role was a dead end just for reasons beyond my control. And so I looked at next step. Next step was I was living in Silicon Valley. Software salaries were much higher than what I was making. So I said, oh, okay, I'm going to get my master's in computer science, and then uh, so finished that. Went to Georgia Tech. Got finished in end of 2022, right after all that layoff Armageddon happened, after the COVID hiring was all jettisoned, and there was like the massive overcorrection to the COVID hiring that happened. And so I'm coming out of my master's degree, hoping to land a junior and mid role, with my master's degree and hitting that. Um, and then I sent a few applications out, maybe 10 to 20. Didn't hear back at all from most of them. Maybe heard back from got a couple of reject letters. And at that point in time, I just sort of um, my company got sold to Emerson, and I was looking to I got an offer for just to switch internally to a software team, and I figured, you know what, I'll just spend a few years learning the craft of software engineering, and they gave me the title of senior software engineer, and I figured, let me just spend 2 to 4 years learning this craft, getting my feet under me as a software engineer, and then I'll uh, come back out to the market, wait for the market to recover from this, massive layoff Armageddon. Um, and then so I bought this van, drove around the country for about 9 months, working remote, and then I was down in Florida last December and was like, you know what? I'm done doing this. I'm gonna go back to California and try to get a new job. And so having had that experience of um, like setting up applications, not getting anything back, and frankly, like the job market has never fully recovered since then.
No.
It's never going to go back to how it was in 2021. And having my unorthodox background, being like I have 10 years of experience now, but six of those were in a role that was hardware oriented. I'm looking for a software job at the senior plus level. Um, I just figured, I've been working remote. I don't have a network to rely on. I'm coming from the outside in. Um, and so yeah, so that's kind of where I was at, thinking like, okay, I'm ready to make a change. I know I want to make a change. I'm gonna give myself, I think we talked about 5 months, uh,
Yes.
you know, uh, um, and I'm gonna put all my weight behind that and try to make it happen. And just look, I was just looking for ways to make that happen.
Sort of hit the timeline goals and
Mhm.
make the transition happen, knowing that there's maybe some holes in job search knowledge, just kind of given your background and what you'd search for
Right.
before. Yeah.
And my sort of unorthodox background, right? And that like it was like I have the senior software engineer title, but like I didn't start as a junior entry level engineer, software engineer. I started as that, doing like customer facing hardware stuff, and with
Yep.
some software. It was a mix of hardware and software. And so like I didn't have that like sort of progression stair step that most people have. So I knew it was. I felt anyway that it was going to be like an awkward search just based on that fact alone.
It's like, how do you market or position your background in a way that gets companies to understand it? and be like, ah, this
Exactly.
makes sense, and like this is what you should slot into.
Exactly. Especially considering like I was an outsider, didn't have any network, anyone on the inside to rely on. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So I think that gives a pretty solid overview, John, of kind of where you were at heading into
Hmm.
things. And I guess like ultimately what made you decide to sign up, I was actually what did make you ultimately decide to sign up? Like we
Yeah.
started
So
talking. Yeah.
yeah. So it's interesting. So I think right around the time that I bought the van, so this is a year ago or more, I got a message from I got a cold email from one of your salespeople.
Okay.
I forget exactly who it was, but they're like, oh, like, um, yeah, I think originally I thought it was like someone offered me like a recruiter offered me a job or something. But they're like, oh, wait, like we love your background. We want to work with you. We think you can help. And so I sent them back like, oh, I just went through a big life transition. It's gonna be I'm gonna keep my current role because it's a better fit. But when I feel like I'm ready, I'll write back to you. And so I wrote the same message to like, I don't know, 8 to 10 different people or recruiters that had been back then that had reached out. But they were the only people that actually wrote back so this is back, like I said, in December.
So we were the only people that
Um,
actually wrote back to you though, back
yeah, as far
uh,
as I remember, yeah.
like a year ago. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you're the only people that when I reached out the second time
Oh, I
wrote
see.
back
We
to me.
actually followed back up of like, oh, hi, John.
Exactly.
Welcome back. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then I met with so I had been doing some research. I saw those ads for interview kickstart and
Okay.
like looked into them, and then I read reviews online and like looked at the curriculum and was like, I don't really understand what value this is providing beyond what I can do on my own. So I didn't follow through with them. But then when I talked to Beatrice and Logan, who I actually really enjoyed talking to, um, they seemed to fully understand exactly where I was, exactly what the problems I was facing. Um, and we're just really nice to talk to, I would say, and I enjoyed talking to them. And um, given they had, they Beatrice said, talked about how proud she was about like the people that you worked with and have got jobs. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I think given what I'm trying to do and my perceived outsider status and the hill I have to climb, I think I could, at that take all the help I could get. And um, it seemed like that was something that would work for me.
Awesome. And then I guess you and I got connected at some point from there, and then we
Hmm.
kind of got started on things. So, yeah, you
Yep.
want to share, John, then a little bit on what happened once you got started with the Platinum coaching program and sort of what sort of your process was?
Yeah. So I'll have to remember now, but yeah. So I got started. Um, yeah, paid the initial 2,000 to start meeting with you and taking classes. Started doing sort of got on the what like the conveyor belt, you would say, of this process. Then I met with you, and I think our first meeting was just sort of like a consultation or something, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's
And
kind of just
then
to get to know you and your background and kind of where you're at and what you're looking for. Is it's kind of hard to
yeah,
shape sort of the support around your job search if we don't know those things.
right, right.
Yes.
So there was that meeting. Then I remember you gave me some homework to do regarding resume in terms of um like converting what I had into like no like action that was taken, business impact, which was extremely helpful. And then I started taking some of those classes, some of the group classes, and uh, then we met to make all the changes for the resume. And then you sort of kept us on schedule. Like next week, we're going to do LinkedIn. We did the LinkedIn. The next week, um, I continue on taking classes, and then after that point, um, paid for the first half of the coaching sessions with Michelle. You handed me off to her. Continued taking some classes, um, and then yeah, and then after that, I was just working with Michelle until um, and then started taking interviews at that point. So that was probably around 3 or 4 weeks in, I would say. Once when I started doing my first interviews, like my first one was with Shield, I remember, and it wasn't long after I had started that started doing interviews. And I will say, like immediately after, it was immediately after the LinkedIn changes. The next day, I had 3 recruiters reach out from like solid companies.
Yeah, I remember you sent me a Slack message along those lines.
Yeah, I was like, what? Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the changes work, right? Just like I said they would. Suddenly,
Oh yeah.
people
I mean, and
want to
and
talk to
and
you.
like, in hindsight, um, and in hindsight, it's sort of obvious why they work, but it's just something that I don't. There's a couple of problems doing it on your own. One, you don't really know what change to make, and you also don't know if the person telling you to make that change is reliable. Like, there's so many people all over the place on social media and on YouTube that say do this and do that, you know, and there's an infinite number of variations of that, so you don't really know how to trust, like who to trust for that. And it was nice having someone that does it, that knows that these things work.
What made you decide, I guess, like to trust us in that regard then? Because I think actually that is a good point. I mean, I see it all the time, and I think some of the advice is dangerous, not to totally like segue. It's not dangerous like you're gonna physically hurt someone, but you are gonna
Mm.
mess their job search up if you tell them to go do this stuff that actually isn't gonna work.
You mean like what why did I trust the advice that you guys were giving
Yeah, yeah,
with
yeah. Because like
resume
at
and
the end of the
LinkedIn?
day, I'm saying to you like trust me, John, trust us, John. Right? Like this, these LinkedIn updates will do the thing that I'm saying they're gonna do.
I mean, I would say a couple of things. One, they just made sense. They, when I went back and looked at the changes, I was like, oh, this it just made perfect sense to me. And also, like, um, what did I have to lose? Like
That's fair. You're right.
I
If
was
they don't work, they don't work. So
exactly. And if like, it's just gonna set me back a week or two, and I could go and I can change it back. So I don't know. I think my risk tolerance is pretty high in that regard.
I can respect that. All right. So yeah, I'm curious. Like, yeah, John, things got changed up. The machine began. Yeah, you want to speak maybe to
Mhm.
kind of like some of the companies you were talking to, like what sort of volume was coming through? Because like leading up into this, I think in your sort of your last search, yeah, I'm curious, like how many companies maybe did you like talk to an interview across what span? And then in this time around, what did that look like?
So yeah, I mean, so kind of like we talked about in a couple times, like I had never put my whole weight behind doing a job search
Hmm.
before now, in a long time. Like, maybe like my previous this current role that I'm leaving originated from a campus recruiter, and my role evolved over time, but I still kind of stayed with the same company, didn't have to make any changes.
And that was like I
So
think a decade you were saying around
yeah,
there.
right.
Okay,
So
so it's
so
been a
I
bit.
didn't. What's that?
It had been a bit.
Yeah. I don't know if you could call what I did before a search, because I just kind of half-assed it. I was just sending out, like looking at stuff on Indeed and looking at different company websites and sending. I didn't, like, I wasn't putting, like, you gotta this there's no way around this. You gotta treat it like a part-time job to be successful. Like, there's no way around that. And I definitely wasn't putting in that level of effort. But I will say, like, I got 0 interviews through that process. Maybe a couple recruiter calls, I would say.
Okay.
But I think those were kind of inbound from LinkedIn. It wasn't from my outbound efforts. Um, yeah, so abysmal. I would say probably sent out, well, let's say 30 applications, uh, and maybe one recruiter response, something like
Okay.
that. And so this time it was like, after we made those changes on LinkedIn, it was like at least 10 to 15 recruiters per week, if not more.
Oh wow.
I would say. Yeah, it was immediate, and I started getting a lot of calls from recruiters, and some of them were from the auto apply. They would be like, "Oh, I got your application," and they call me up, and they were like, one woman, this very sweet recruiter from San Diego, called me and was trying to hire me for like a contract position that I wasn't interested in, and she was like, "I can't believe like nobody has scooped you up yet. I don't know if she's just like buttering me up because she's a recruiter. Um, but she was, yeah. After that, it was more that I could handle. It was more volume like that I could handle. I told Michelle like I'm turning off the auto apply because I have a huge chunk of interest coming in that I have to sort through first before I can go and look at that.
Well, it's a pretty good problem to have, though, right? In the sense that,
Yeah,
last job search, there was no one to speak to. And I
right.
think as even you spoke to as well, this job market is not the same as the one that you thought you were kind of entering into when you wrapped up your master's, right? And it
Yeah,
has,
well, that I was hoping to enter into anyway. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
No, and it hasn't really recovered at all. And when you hear about folks looking for work right now, many people are like, "Oh, I can't get any interviews. No one's talking to me. No one's hiring." But I don't think that was your experience here.
No, and I came to the conclusion that I wasn't going to wait for it to recover. I was just like, it's time for me. It's time for me in my career to make a move, and I'm going to do that. And yeah, it was not my experience during this process that there was no interest. If I was certainly I was telling recruiters and people no. Yeah,
It's a good, yeah, good place to be in, right? You're like, oh, I
yeah,
have some power in this agency in this process, right? I don't need to just take
yeah.
whatever comes my way.
Right.
And I guess, yeah, John, you want to kind of speak to sort of your outcome here at the end in terms of some of the interviews that you took, and then, yeah, I guess like ultimately where you ended up landing at.
Yeah. So I think I got past the hiring manager at I want to say 5 or 6 different companies. Um, one of those was Shield AI. I had two from Apple, one from an AI startup, and then I was in the process of a solutions architect interview process with GE Vernova at the time I accepted my offer. So um, yeah, so I ended up getting an interview with the Apple services team, looking for someone with my exact. I wasn't my resume wasn't a perfect fit, but they were looking for someone that had those years of technical consulting experience. And in a proven role at in a working with big tech companies because that's what they are. Um, and that initial interview went fantastic. Um, I did a lot of preparation for the interview circuit that I did. Um, I will say like the advice that Michelle gave in terms of like using Copilot and ChatGPT to prepare, phenomenal tools for preparation. I mean, I fed it in the job description and said like, can you generate some mock interviews from this, some various scenarios, and a couple of those actually came up, or like variations of it came up during the interview process. So I was really very well prepared there. But 2 days later, they came back with an offer for an ICT 4. The initial offer was 227K with a 20K sign on, 300K of RSUs spread over 4 years, and a typical 10% annual bonus if that's like generally what people hit. And then Michelle got me to negotiate up the 227 to 235. I was ready to take the 227. Um, as it was, I was like, this deal. I would have,
You were ready to
I
just
would have
say
taken
yes.
less.
This is great. This
I
is
right,
already
yeah.
everything I wanted and a bit
I was
more.
ready to say
Yeah.
yes, but I was just like for good measure, and it's also like so like one thing that she told me and one thing that I saw other places during the time I was, they gave me the offer on Wednesday. Told them I respond back to them by Friday. One thing is like if you negotiate it, as long as you're not crazy and you're polite about it, it kind of demonstrates like that is for one, you're confident in your abilities, which is great to project, but also like if you were representing them in um in a discussion with an outside company, they would want you to negotiate on their behalf as well. So it sort of demonstrates that. So I'm glad she talked me into it. And the key thing that she sold me on was like, this is a skill that you don't get a chance to really practice and develop. Um, but I was so ready to take the offer. I like just like, okay, I'll do it. And then yeah, they had to take it back to the hiring manager. Um, but by the end of the day, they came back said we'll do it.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
so it
good.
was Friday morning, then by Friday afternoon they had the offer ready. Yeah.
Nice. I mean, going back to the hiring manager just means like, hey, we gotta go deliberate. That doesn't mean a no, doesn't mean, oh, you've blown it. It just means they gotta
Well,
make a
and
decision.
yeah, and the recruiter also said like if that doesn't work, I'll see what I can do. So
Okay.
like she was ready. My guess is she would have bumped up the signing bonus. You know,
That's pretty good. So 8K plus 10%, so it's like 8,800 for a what, a phone call, basically?
right, right, yeah,
Pretty
yeah,
good ROI, right?
per year too, right? So it's like
Yeah, that compounds.
yeah, yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
And John, where were you at? So like what's the total comp there? I don't know if you like broken that down or we can do it together in here, like compared to, yeah, especially where you were at
My previous role, so
beforehand.
this current role,
Yep.
so the one thing I will say that it's fully remote, so that's to me that's worth a significant amount of money.
Yep.
Um, but I was looking, especially if I'm going to a big tech, I wanted to maximize the comp. But my base pay at this job is I want to say like 155K, and then I have about between 12 and 15K of allowances. So I round that up to about 170.
Okay. And then so your current or the role you're leaving total comp's like 170 and then the new one is
It's like around 345, 340, something like that.
okay. And then the signing bonus was what? 10, 20
It
for the
was
first
20.
20? So it's like
Mm-hmm.
350-ish for the first year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
All right, so a little over double,
2x.
2x.
Yeah, yeah.
And how long did it take?
What do you mean?
Like the job search, I mean, like from when you're like, all right, like I'm like taking this seriously and I'm going all in to like, yeah,
To when
signing
I
the
accepted the
offer.
offer?
Yeah, accepted the offer and you're like, cool, I'm done.
Uh, so let's say New Year's Day was when I started.
Yep.
And they came in with the offer like the first week of March. So that's let's say 10 weeks.
That's pretty good. Yeah. And you were
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
preparing yourself internally, mentally for 5 months, right?
right.
Yeah. And then you're
Yeah.
done in two instead. Excellent.
Yeah, and it was great. I mean, like I said, like you got to treat this like a part-time job. It is
Absolutely.
what it is. It is what it is. It's stressful. You have your normal job and you have this on top of it. So, I mean, I was prepared for that, and it turned out really well. Yeah, I was ready to go. I mean, I think we talked about like if I didn't have it by May, I was going to take the summer off and start again in the fall.
No, you told me you
But
really wanted to try
yeah,
to get something before then, so you didn't bake in your van. I distinctly remember that
exactly, exactly. Yeah,
conversation. Um, no, that's awesome. And I think your mindset was spot on because I see it a lot with folks that I talk to that are like considering this. So they're like, oh no, I'm gonna like just do this. What do they say to me? Like part-time, or I'm just gonna kind of like casually jobs. No, casually job search is the one.
I don't think
No,
that'll work. Not
no,
not in
that's
this market.
no.
Mm-mm.
I'm like, so what does that mean? Casually search, like, oh, like if a recruiter reaches out to me, I'll talk to them. And I'm like, and then what? Like, what's the strategy then? Are you gonna like prepare? Like, and then if they move you forward, like, what are you gonna do from there? And then when I start to ask some of those deeper probing questions, that's where the strategy stops.
But it's also like you have to maintain momentum too. It's like
Yes.
extremely important. Like as and, you're sharpening your skills. Like you're keeping those skills sharp, and they get sharper and sharper as you go. And also like if you take a break for too long, I think it's okay to take a break for a week or two if you're getting super burned out.
Yep.
That might be good. But like if you're not in that cycle of like, okay, I'm preparing for this next interview. If you don't keep those, like I already feel like if I were to jump back in, I would have to catch up to where I was, and that's only been like 3 weeks.
No, I think you're also spot on that. Like interviewing is a muscle, is a skill. You need to like
Right.
develop it, especially if you don't. or if that's not something that you've really worked on before in the past.
Right.
And then from there, you got to keep like honing it and honing it and honing it, which comes through repetition, which means you need to have successive interviews. And like doing it piecemeal means that like every time you have like a process, it stops. Maybe you learn from it, maybe you don't, because the companies usually don't give you any feedback.
Right.
And then you kind of have to like wait for the next one. And if it's not there immediately ready for you to take, like it's unknown when the next one might actually be.
Right. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It's like it was a tough process and it was stressful, but you know that's just how it is.
You compress discomfort though, right? Into a shorter
Exactly.
period of time to just be over and done with it.
Exactly. I like to say half-ass. Don't half-ass two things. Whole-ass one.
Um, awesome, Joe. I'm super happy for you. And I mean, that's like a pretty phenomenal outcome to,
It
I
is.
mean, that would
It is.
be a phenomenal outcome in any job market, but especially in
Right.
this one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and with this team, I just think I was exactly what they were looking for, and they were exactly what I was looking for. And have you heard of this is slightly off topic, but there's like this mathematical theorem of like if you're looking for like the best match, it's like like if you're looking for like the best partner to marry, you're supposed to like date four people like relatively seriously, and then the next person that shows up after those four people that's better than them, you take that one. Like that's like that person is better than everyone else that you could ever possibly meet. And so for me, it was like five companies, five different teams, and this team. So
And
that
then
worked out
this
as
was the
well.
last one, and you're like, okay, this seems like it clicks, this aligns, this is it.
Well, I had some ongoing talks with GE Vernova, which would have been a cool role, but it would have been like 50% travel and significantly less
Money.
compensation. Yeah, so it's like, no
This is a
thanks.
no-brainer. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like this role was like it was sort of exactly what I had in mind when I started. I mean, it really was. It was like I want to work in SF. I want to work a hybrid role. I want to do solutions, not necessarily strictly software, because that's more my wheelhouse. And hopefully at like a big tech company where I can max compensation and I got all those boxes were checked and it was just a no brainer, which is why I was like hesitant to negotiate, but Michelle talked me into it. Yeah,
When you saw nothing happen, right? If anything, you just demonstrated to them that much more like, oh, this is a high value candidate that we just
exactly,
hired onto the team, right? He knows his worth. He knows what's up. We'll just give him a little bit more here so he's happy. And he says,
exactly. And it was, it was just for good measure. And I told him as like, if you guys do this, I will say yes,
yeah, that's like some of the magic words there. And usually people get back to you and they give you some amount of money, right? When you think though, like
Mm-hmm.
I was saying, like how much time you put into that conversation, like how long was the negotiation call? Like 10 minutes, and then you get
Less than that. Yeah.
yeah, you get $8,800 that compounds over time afterwards. That's pretty good.
Right.
Only everything was that high of ROI in life.
Yeah.
It's not. All right. And I guess, yeah, two other questions for you here, John. I guess
Mm-hmm.
one, in reflecting back on things, is there anything that sort of like surprised you in, us working together through the sort of platinum coaching process, hopefully in a good way that maybe you weren't necessarily expecting?
Um, I will say like the changes, um, like the amount that my LinkedIn exploded afterwards was a surprise, I would say. I didn't I didn't know that that was possible. That well, like when you told me I'm expecting 1 to 3 new messages per day after I was like, what are you talking about, man? Like so that was a surprise. Let's see what else. Um, not much else was a surprise. I will say, um, I was pleasantly surprised to make some good connections while in the program. Particularly with Bunreth, like he became kind of my buddy. Going back and
Nice.
forth with him.
You
Yeah.
stayed in touch with him at all? I mean, like I keep everybody in the alumni group for a reason. I think it's fun to
Uh,
make connections in the job search.
I mean, I plan on staying in touch with him for sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's just like now that I'm sort of off the train and sort of coasting, and he's still on it. Like, um, our what we have in common is kind of diverging a little bit. But I he was super happy for me when I got
Nice.
the offer, and yeah.
Good to have job search buddies, right? For some other search too. Sometime in the
Yeah, I mean
future,
it's
referring
good to
folks
have
in. Yeah.
people. It's good to have shared challenges with anyone. Like whatever you're going through. And the job search is stressful, and there's anxiety and there's self-doubt and stuff. So it's always good to have someone next to you that's going through the same thing, where you can just say like, "Hey, I'm doing this." Like, "Oh, don't worry about it." There's so many conversations of like, "Dude, you're tripping. Like, you're fine." Like a lot of that stuff.
No, I completely agree. Doing the job search alone is kind of depressing. And
Yeah, and and
yeah,
and you don't really have a good barometer on how well you're actually doing if you're doing it alone.
I
Like you could be absolutely crushing it and not know, and you could be way off the mark and not know at all.
and then it's like, how do you maintain momentum in that state, right? Especially as you mentioned
Exactly.
too, like you could be so close to the finish line and you have no idea.
Right.
And then you're like, F this, I'm just taking a break for a while, right? And you don't realize
Yeah.
you're like a week away from being done.
Right. And when it's kind of like you're like flying through a cloud in turbulence. You know, and like the feedback you're getting, because these interviews are stressful and stuff. So like the feedback you're getting from your nervous system might be a total mismatch for how you're actually performing. And it's really hard to make that assessment yourself. Like you could be really relaxed and calm and just totally bombing, or you could be having that anxiety and be like, "Oh no, I thought you did great." you know so it's really good to have another set of eyes on what you're doing, just to and have other people to talk to about, like, this is my experience.
That I think hits the nail on the head. Just not like you yourself as an individual, not always being many times, right? Sort of the best judge of your own performance. I see that all the time where, yeah,
Right.
people come out of the interview and like, yeah, I did so great, I crushed it, and then they get told no, and they're like, I don't understand. And then
Right.
completely the converse, right? They're like, man, that was super bad. I like fumbled here, here, and here. And then they hear back like hours later and like the company's very excited to move you forward and also don't understand.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you just don't know. Yeah.
And I think, yeah, John, just last question here. Anybody, or I guess for folks who are maybe on the fence and considering signing up, working with us through the ApplyPass Platinum program, obviously, they probably do too. It's a non-trivial investment. Anything you
Right.
might want to share to them that are on the fence where, maybe if they sort of line up in these different areas, this would be something that's going to benefit them and get them to where they're trying to go sooner.
Yeah, I would definitely say, if you're serious about it, and you're like, in my like if you're I think you need to make a resolution with yourself before you start, about like, I'm going to see this through to the end, regardless whether you're going with apply pass or not. And I think if you are, um, I, I, I mean, looking back, it's really hard to distinguish. I have no idea how well I would have done without it. I will say I really doubt that my LinkedIn would have been as performative as it was. And like it was. I think the amount of messages I was getting, I had too many. I literally, halfway through my search, I just had to stop, and like I was like making a commitment to respond to all of them, and there were so many that I just didn't have time to respond to them. So that to me, and my resume now, I helped a buddy with his resume, just going off of the changes that we made for mine, because they're and I can definitely see from a hiring manager's perspective, looking at that, like how much better. It's just you have 5 seconds, 10 seconds of their time to look through the. If you're not, if it's not clear to them what value you're bringing, and what pressure you work through, and what you've delivered for other companies or for other positions, it's nothing personal, but it just wasn't communicated clearly in your resume. So it's gonna, you're gonna get passed on, especially in this market. So, um, yeah, I would say, I mean, I looking back, I think it was worth the investment, for sure. Luckily, I was in a financial position where I had some extra money laying around that I wouldn't um that was I treated it as an investment. I looked at it as I'm going to spend this. It is, it's not cheap. But I know that given what my potential was, I didn't think that I would have been able to meet it without the help that you guys provided. So
At
I
least
I
like
knew like what's up?
I was gonna say, or at least like also like in the timeline too, right? I think
Right.
given enough time, one can learn a new skill and sort of figure it out, but it's like how long do you want to spend doing that, leveling up on job searching and interviewing? Like,
Exactly. Exactly. So when I talked to some of my family's members about it, they were like, "Oh, that's a lot," But I was like, "But look at what these salaries are, like look at these outcomes." And I know, yeah, I mean, I'm at the point in my life where I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at, and I know what I know and I know what I don't know, and I also don't know what I don't know. So having all that together was like, I think this is worth taking a chance on, and it paid off for me.
awesome. Yeah, I would definitely say that it did here, John.
Yeah.
Much faster, sometimes like the stars align, I tell people, right? And you can usually I try to prepare folks for like 2.5, 3.5 month search, but I always tell everybody like sometimes it can go a lot faster, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but like kind of that's the average here. And yeah, you got there. So awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a relief, man. And I'm excited.
Well, John, I think that wraps up the questions here that I had for you. I don't know if you have any other last things. Otherwise, really do appreciate your time. Um, if you have like
No, I think
words of
that's it.
wisdom for those that are out there still going along.
Yeah, for words of wisdom, I would just say, uh, make sure like you're gonna get the best results, um, if you just consistently stay out of your comfort zone. And it's tough. I mean, taking however many, I was doing like one or two interviews a week. Um, and I was anxious about it, but I knew that staying with what I was comfortable with I wasn't gonna reach my potential that way. And so but also make sure that you're pacing yourself too. So that you got to strike a balance there of like, you got to stick your head out, you know, stick your neck out for a while, do the uncomfortable thing for 2 or 3 days at a time, but just make sure that you're also taking care of yourself during that process.
No, it's true. Like recognizing it's a marathon, but at the same time, the most growth happens in states of discomfort, right? And
Exactly.
so you kind of have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
balance both.
Yeah, I mean what's sort of the weird thing about human psychology is like at the greatest leverage situations are the times that we're most likely to shrink back into what feels safe. But that's like the time that you have to push through. At that moment of peak leverage, when you feel the most anxious and the most stressed out, that is the most important time to push a little bit further, um, past what you're comfortable in if you want to get good results.
I completely agree with that statement. I'll
Yeah.
leave it at that. All right, John. Well, thank you again. Really do appreciate your time. And yeah, wishing you the best in your new Apple role. Interested to hear how it goes once it gets started. And yeah, thank you again.